Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Troy, Sports Talk 82, and I just did it. I just spent about 2 hours running through every team on CBS, like team comparison thing, and I got him. I got who I think will. I got how I think the brackets will be laid out for the 2014 NCAA tournament. So if you watched my video earlier today, which I'm assuming you haven't because I have like 3 views right now, who the fourth number one seed is. Obviously, Florida, Wichita State, and Arizona seem to have the first three locked up. But as I explained in that last video, Michigan gets my vote for the fourth number one seed. So that leaves us with the number two line to start out with. And I will do that right now. I believe that Villanova, Duke, Kansas, and Wisconsin will be the number two seeds. Villanova, um, they have too many good wins to leave them off the number two line. They really don't lose many games at all. Duke has a bunch of quality wins. Kansas, even though Embiid got hurt and they lost to Iowa State, who is a very, very good team in the Big 12 championship tournament, I still think they're there, and Wisconsin has proved all year that they can play. Now, on the number three line, as you can see, I did not have Louisville at number one or two, so yes, I have them here. I mean, when you look at them, their schedule, they really haven't played good against anybody. Their record versus the top 50 RPI, every other team that I've mentioned so far, and every other team that I'm about to mention, pretty much blows them out of the water with that, so they really don't deserve to be a number one or two seed based on how they played throughout the season. Now, if we're going through how they've recently played, oh man, they've been just wrecking people. Iowa State, Iowa State will probably make it to the Final Four, in my opinion. I don't know. I just they have they've just been so underrated all year, and I don't know why because they've been playing amazing. They beat all these great teams, Niang, Kane, all great players on their team, and they're going to make noise. Now, number three, also haven't mentioned them yet. So Syracuse, yes, I do have them on the number three line, and as well as Virginia. So up to this point, I don't have anything different from Joe Lenardi, and that's why I like it personally. I didn't look at his things before um, doing mine, so that's just how it turned out. With the number four line, that's where it starts to change between us. Creighton, I have them as a four seed. Doug McDermott, when you have him on your team, you can win any game. He's just a game changing player, really. Michigan State, they've been proving in the Big Ten tournament that they are legit. I have them as the number four seed. San Diego State, even though they lost yesterday, I think New Mexico is a very, very good team, and that one loss doesn't really reflect that poorly on them. Now, my number four seed, this is where I changed it up. I go Cincinnati because of the fact that they are just a solid team. I think they beat Louisville. I'm not sure about that. I'm looking that up right now, but I'm pretty sure they beat Louisville. Yeah, they did beat Louisville on the road, and they swept Memphis. So that's why I picked them. Moving on to the number five. Here we go. And yes, I do have 36 at-large bids, 32 AQs. I think I screwed that up last year, but now I got it. Here's kind of a big, not like risky pick, but Joe does not have this. I have VCU as a number five seed. I really like their win versus Virginia early in the season, sweeping George Washington. Actually, no, they did not sweep George Washington, but they got 2 wins against George Washington, which is pretty good. They're a very good team. Also, we're going to try to move on. UCLA. Joe had UCLA as one of his number four teams, but I have to pause because of their loss versus Washington State, who's 224 in the RPI. Oregon State is 100 in the RPI. They just have a bunch of bad losses. Utah, it's not a great loss. It's not a terrible loss either. And, of course, they did beat Arizona, which was kind of their claim to fame all season. I don't know if I mentioned Oklahoma. I think I skipped them, but if I didn't, Oklahoma and Uconn is rounding out the number five line. I really like Uconn. I don't know if I'm just overrating all teams in the American for some strange reason, but hey, I am on the East Coast, so I guess I got a little bit of that East Coast bias going on. They swept Cincinnati, beat Memphis 3 times. Of course, they beat Louisville. I mean, not Louisville, Florida. I'm reading it right off the screen. Number 6, I think there's a huge drop off between the number 5s to the number 6s. I don't know why I feel that way, but when you look at the quality of these teams, it gets a lot harder to choose. And we're starting off with somebody, well, not somebody, but a team that completely came limping into the tournament, and that is St. Louis. They started out the season really good, but especially with that loss to St. Bonaventure in the championship, well, not the championship, but the championship tournament of the A10, that gives me a little bit of pause about them. Also, I have Ohio State on there. They haven't really done anything bad, but they haven't really impressed throughout the season that much. New Mexico, I have here. They're just, after watching them yesterday beat San Diego State, I don't see how they can't beat any other team if they play up to their abilities. And number 6, I'm definitely going to have to back this up with a little bit of stats here because your initial reaction is going to be like, what? But I do have Umass ranked here at the number 6 line. They beat Virginia Commonwealth, New Mexico on a neutral floor, George Washington, BYU, St. Joe's, Providence, Nebraska, all tournament teams. Not too many bad losses. They have one bad loss against George Mason, another against St. Bonaventure, but every other team is either on the bubble or into the tournament of their losses. So I think that UMass, especially with Chaz Williams, I actually saw them play like 2 years in a row, so that's probably why I picked them, but it might not be. I think they really do have a good... Their non-conference RPI is number 7, so that's good. They won all their away non-conference games, proving they're a good team in my mind. So now we move on to the 7 line. I have Kentucky, Oklahoma State, North Carolina, and Gonzaga. Gonzaga, I really didn't want to put them up this much because I'm really just not really a believer in them. They're 2-3 against the RPI top 50, and they lost to San Diego and Portland. And those were both games that, if you're Gonzaga and you're playing in the West Coast Conference, you have to get those gimme games, or else you're going to drop to, as I have them, a number 7 seed. North Carolina, I was going to put them up a little bit higher, but I just couldn't because of those 9 losses. And they do have some good wins, Duke, Kentucky, Louisville, but losing against Belmont, Miami, Florida, Wake Forest, UAB, all some pretty terrible losses if you ask me. So now moving on to the 8 line, George Washington, Baylor, Oregon, and Texas. Oregon, I think, can make a little bit of noise. They have a better resume than most people realize. And George Washington. I know Baylor gave Iowa State a real run for their money last night, so people are going to be on the lookout for them. But don't forget about George Washington and Oregon. Moving on. Number 9 line, got Pittsburgh, who I really don't like because they're 2-7, top 50 RPI record. But you got to put them somewhere because they have earned their way into the tournament. Memphis, I have as a number 9 seed. And what's the problem with them is they did sweep Louisville, but they lost to Cincinnati 2 times, Uconn 3 times. So when you look at that, then they split against SMU. So they did beat Louisville, but other teams did give them trouble. So that's why they're on the 9 line. Rounding out the number 9 line, we got Kansas State and Stanford. So now moving on to 10. Tennessee, Colorado, Iowa, St. Joe's. Iowa, just a team that every single time I watch them, they are close at the end, and they miss free throws, and just that's just like the worst thing a team can do, miss late free throws, and I see it with Iowa consistently. Plus, their resume, when you look at it, not as good as it was thought to be earlier in the season, And it was just an example of a team that in the beginning of the season people were liking, and then they just lost more and more games, just so close, but they just couldn't get over the hump, and that's why now they're down to a number 10 seed. Also, St. Joe's, I have them a little higher than most people probably do, but when you look at them, they might win the A10 championship today. By the time this video is up, it'll probably already be over, but they have a chance to win one of the most competitive leagues this year, so you can't just discount that. So, my last non-bubble team, in my mind, is Nebraska. I think that Nebraska sealed their fate. I think that if you're a Nebraska fan, you probably shouldn't worry that much. I mean, I know it's just me saying that, but I'm not a Nebraska fan. They beat Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Ohio State. All their losses, Michigan, Creighton, Cincinnati, UMass, Ohio State, Iowa. No one's getting mad over any of those losses. They do have 3 bad ones against Penn State, Purdue, and UAB, but 2 of those were in conference play on the road. You can kind of excuse them. Plus, that late season win versus Wisconsin was crucial. If they could have got that win versus Ohio State in the Big Ten tourney, I would have just been totally on board with them, but I don't think that they're in too much trouble. So, from this point on, it's all bubble teams. Well, I think Nebraska's a little bit on the bubble. I don't think their fans have to worry too much, but I think that every time I'm about to mention your team, your fans have to worry a lot. SMU, Arizona State, Utah, Dayton, Arkansas, BYU, Southern Miss, and Xavier. A lot of those teams are going to be very disappointed today at 6 p.m. So, there's one more at-large bid spot that does not require a play-in game, and I think that goes to SMU because even though they lost to USF, Houston, and Temple, they did beat Cincinnati and Uconn on the road and at home. So, I think that counts for something. And once you get down here, I mean, it's the smallest things that separate teams. So, one of the 2 playing games I have as Dayton versus Arizona State. 2 teams that resumes are pretty good. And the last playing game, I have Xavier versus BYU. And BYU is my last team into the field. It's not really that they did anything that impressed me in the slightest. It's just that no other team did anything more. If I had to pick another team, it would be in order Southern Miss, Utah, and Arkansas. Other than that, I mean, I think it's just a prayer for any other team to get in. But those are my 68 teams plus the AQs. What do you guys think? This video, geez, was draining. It was a lot of work. But if you could leave a comment, subscribe. I don't know. Mellow Yellow? Classic drink. It's really good, guys. I wish I was sponsored by Mellow Yellow. Anyway, see you guys later.